We're just waiting for Mansour to come on. He's actually in Doha, Qatar. So he's what? I think he's 7 hours ahead of us. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining in on this early morning. And we're just waiting for him to come on. I think it's like 4 o'clock his time. So I'm just kind of waiting for him to come on, and then we'll get started. I've been looking forward to speaking to him for actually a long time. Ever since my first mission to Gaza, which was about 2 months ago now, and I reached out to him at that point in time on text, and I just couldn't get a hold of him. I don't know if that was the time when he was stuck and we lost contact with him. But around that time, I tried to reach out to him. But I'm back in Canada. I came back actually 2 days ago. And my heart and my mind is still in Gaza. It was definitely a different experience being back after 2 months. I mean, things are the same, and things are actually worse as well. So it's really horrible. So things being the same is not a good thing, because it was really bad when I was there 2 months ago, and basically things are just worse. I mean, the deterioration is worse. Nobody thought that the war would go on for so long, and so I think this time, emotionally, it was a much more draining experience for me. I think that the first time I was almost in awe going to Gaza, experiencing all the trauma and all the death and destruction and for the first time, and meeting people, meeting the doctors there, meeting the hospital staff, getting familiarized with the refugee camp that the hospital had become, trying to sort of understand what's going on. That was the first time. And I also stayed, what was different about the first time was I also stayed in an area in the hospital that all the foreign doctors stayed. So I stayed with the other North American doctors that had come. So at that point in time, as you recall, I was basically I was on the first mission from North America. So there weren't a lot of doctors there. Back then there was like 3 guys from the UK, and then there was 1 Canadian, which was me, and then there's 1 American at that time. And so I stayed with them. But this time when I went, there's of course more doctors, there's more people, because now, hold on, let me see. I think he's coming on now. I think Mansour is going to come on in a second. He's trying to join.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah.
How are you?
MashaAllah, from the first time. Good video, good audio, MashaAllah. Even the camera is in the right setting. Normally my camera shows the back, now it's showing the front. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah.
Are you going to say you're live from Doha? I'm waiting for it.
Ya Allah. Assalamu alaikum, doctor. MashaAllah. Munawwar, as we say in Arabic. MashaAllah. Light is coming out of your face, MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Apologies for being late.
Oh, no.
I was just praying.
Probably that in Doha right now. And so I guess it's like live from Doha and live from Portugal.
Sorry, doctor, the voice is cutting a little bit.
Is that okay now?
Yes, the voice is okay.
No, I was the audience that I just came back from Gaza 2 days ago. I was at the European Gaza hospital, and it's my second trip. And my first trip was in late December, early January. So I was basically the first North American mission that went to Gaza. So from the Canada and the U.S. And at that point in time, there weren't a lot of people going doctor-wise at that point in time. And so I got to see it then, and I got to see it now. And I tried getting a hold of you actually, but you weren't following me or anything like that. So that's why I tried texting you, and it was in early January, and try and meet a fellow Canadian because I mean, we've all been following you. Alhamdulillah, we've all been inspired for a long time since the war started in October of your messages of hope and optimism. And I'll start off by saying, that's one thing that when I on my first trip, I realized that Palestinians in general are people of hope and optimism, and that's what Islam teaches us, really, right? It's a way of life of hope and optimism, and so I really felt that despite all the destruction and death going on, that's the first thing I noticed was the steadfastness and the faith of the Palestinian people. And you kind of emulated that in your posts and in your live feeds and things like that. And that's why we were so worried when you were lost for a couple of times. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, how do you feel now being back from it's been what, 3 weeks, I think, or 2 weeks?
Assalamu alaikum. Doctor, may I suggest that I think in order to increase the quality of the audio, when you talk, I'll mute myself, and vice versa. Just to make sure that the audio is better, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Ramadan Mubarak. First of all, we need to just talk about what's been happening in Gaza, Doctor, over the last few days. I mean, the ongoing... someone else is running it? Okay. I think by mistake you had someone, Doctor. Okay. So the Israeli authorities, the IDF is basically escalating when it comes to trying to put pressure on the Palestinian people through different massacres that they are doing. And the last 5 days, what we hear about the flower massacres, the hunger massacres. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep the people there steadfast and give them iman and raise their stance in this dunya and the akhirah, inshallah. Despite were you able to mute yourself? Okay, were you perfect? Apologies, everyone. Is the audio still bad, or can you hear me better? I can hear my echo, which means is the audio okay? No more echo. Perfect, excellent. Can you hear me, everyone? Okay. So I was just telling Dr. Yasser that I got a call from Al Jazeera like 30 minutes ago asking me to come on their show in an hour's time to talk about, the ongoing situation in Gaza from the sources that I have there on the ground, in addition to trying to analyze the political situation there when it comes to appointing the new prime minister for this puppet government that we have in the West Bank and how this will affect Gaza. So we're going to try to discuss things in an open discussion together with Dr. Mustafa Al-Barghouthi, who is someone that I respect within the political scheme here in Palestine. I'm originally from Jerusalem. I spent 2 years in Gaza. 5 months of them was during the war. And the people in Gaza are the most innovative, creative, optimistic, mentally strong people that I have ever met in my life. And I've traveled to several countries, and I've worked in many different large multinationals, and I've dealt with different people. But alhamdulillah, I'm telling you that the people of Gaza, and Doctor, maybe you can confirm that, is that their mentality, subhanAllah, is different. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing them, I think, for something bigger, inshallah. When God tests people, it means that He's preparing them for something. He's asking them to get closer to Him. And wallahi, every day there we were seeing miracles that could not be explained in terms of the physical realms of this world. And inshallah, we'll have a good conversation. And doctor, maybe from your time there, can you give us some medical, if I may call it miracles, or things that um, you cannot explain from a medical point of view that you have seen, inshallah, when you were there in Gaza? Back to you.
So, the first time I was there 2 months ago, and this time, I mean, I saw stuff that I've never seen before. The amount of trauma, the type of trauma, the extent of trauma I saw, I've never seen before. And so yeah, I mean, there was, I mean, one thing that stands out this time, and I'm gonna put those pictures on my Instagram soon enough. There was one man that I saw on this trip. There was a man about 45 years old. He was, there was a bombing, and he had his whole house collapse on him. Lost his entire family, but he was, his face was split open. And I'll try and see if I can post a picture, somewhat censored if I can, with his face split open. And he was under the rubble for 8 days with his face literally, and when I say split open, I'm not mincing words. It was literally off like this. And he spent 8 days under the rubble and somehow survived. So can you imagine spending 8 days under rubble in a claustrophobic scenario with cement walls on you, with your face wide open, probably in a lot of pain for 8 days and still survive? I don't know what he was thinking, what he thought. I mean, I asked him what he thought, and he said that he kept on mentioning God's name, mentioning Allah's name, and doing dhikr and doing, reciting just to calm himself down. But he was eventually found, and they were able to put his face back together, although he lost both his eyes, but he's still alive. And that was a miracle, because, I mean, how often does that happen for 8 days? There's another girl that I saw, a beautiful 7 or 8 year old girl who, again, lost her entire family, was under the rubble for 24 hours by herself. She had her dead aunt, and I think her dead grandmother side by side, both dead. But she was there, and she was found. And then we had to tell her that both her parents have lost, but she survived. I mean, that's the individual miracles. I think overall, Mansoor, I mean, what really impressed me was, and especially when I went back this time, is the constant trauma that they're suffering on a regular hourly basis, and how they're surviving and moving on is beyond words. I mean, anybody else in the world would have lost their themselves, right? Would have lost themselves. But they've been able to hold it together, and I don't know how. Now, yes, I did feel a lot of despair. It's been 2 months since I left. Things are worse, and they're burnt out, right? The constant trauma. As a surgeon, when I operate, I've got a mix of patients. Some are routine cases. Some are maybe 1 or 2 trauma from like a car accident, or some kind of other accident, right? But this is all they see. All they see is horrible trauma, like explosives, gunshots, fractures, amputations. So the way they move on, I mean, that by itself is a miracle that I've never seen anywhere in the world. Like the steadfastness, the ability to move on is just amazing.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. I was located in Nasser Hospital for around 4 months, and subhanallah, I would meet regularly with the medical staff, the doctors, the nurses, the administrators, the ambulance workers, the civil defense workers, and these, in my opinion, are some of the true heroes behind the scenes, and not only overworked, underpaid. Now most of them were also with IDF custody. Like they have suffered so much, and mashallah, they are still continuing to do their job. Even after being released from custody, they just come back and they do the work that they've been doing. With the support of the global community, alhamdulillah, several times we were able to cover the salaries of these staff in different hospitals, alhamdulillah. But again, whatever you compensate them for, most of these people have already lost their homes, they've lost relatives. Um, Many of them have gone through things that, like you said, if it goes through any one of us, we will most probably lose our mind. But then we remember that, as Muslims, we believe that لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. The ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not overburden someone more than what he or she can take. And this is from the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what I think, for example, is very, very difficult for me and will kill me mentally, may be easier on another person. And I will see other people's traumas and I will feel if I went through them, I will not be able to bear them. But one of the things I felt, doctor, there in Gaza, and please let me know if you felt the same. I felt this sense of sakina and tuma'nina. So a sense of peace and tranquility, despite the continuous drones, despite the continuous um, attacks, despite the continuous uncertainty. I always felt, subhanAllah, that there is a sense of sakina and tuma'nina, peace and tranquility amongst the people, amongst the population at large. Did you feel something the same, or am I on my own there?
You know, it's and I said this to a lot of people when I got back, and some people have said this, and you gotta be there to really know what I mean. But there's something about Gaza that once you visit Gaza and that land and the people, it attracts you. I mean, you leave your heart back, and your heart doesn't come back with you, and you have a yearning to go back to that land. And so I told, I was suffering for the first 3 months before I went in early January. All of us were suffering around the world with the trauma and the destruction, death going on. But when I was there, I was at peace. Like, my suffering was not as much. And when I came back, even, I was more at peace. And it doesn't make sense. How can you see, a mother carrying a dead 8-9-year-old skinny starving child, screaming at us, to check his pulse when he's already dead, and then still be at peace and tranquility? And it's hard to describe, but I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's exactly how I feel. Even now, when I've come back only 2 days ago, after second, I want to go back, because there's something about that place and the people there that is just amazing. And so when I was there, I'm more at peace there than I'm here. And I'm not discounting the fact that, listen, I'm the one that gets to get out, right? So, of course, I'm in a different position. I'm in a privileged, alhamdulillah, position that I get to go out. I get to leave, right? I don't get to, I've got a choice when they don't have a choice. I understand that. And so maybe I've got different, yeah, there's something peaceful about that place and the people that is really blessed, I think.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Doctor, for other people who would like to uh, I, who would like to join you, or who would like to go and help in Gaza, especially in the medical field, can you give options for how they can do that, whether from Canada or from other countries? Jazakallah khair.
Well, I think that, so right now, who's being allowed to go in? Going in is a complex, complex. It's complex, but yet not so complex. Right now, only healthcare workers or healthcare workers who are, or coordinators who work with healthcare teams can get in right now. So, in order to get in, you have to be approved by the WHO, and also in extension the local Ministry of Health, but mostly the WHO and the Israeli authorities and the Egyptian authorities have to approve you. So your name is circulated through a bunch of authorities, and they approve you. Mostly the WHO, and you go in. So right now it's healthcare workers or healthcare related workers who are getting in, and what I try to explain to my doctor colleagues, and I really encourage nurses and physicians and other healthcare workers to go, is that, there's always an element of risk, but then crossing the street, there's a risk of getting hit by a car, and so there's always an element of risk. It's not risk-free, but it's not, the WHO coordinates your protection, and yes, there's always a risk, but it's a calculated risk. and healthcare workers, at least the foreigners, not the locals. The locals are persecuted and arrested and tortured, unfortunately, if they get caught or when they get caught by the IDF. But I mean, the foreigners can go in because not only do we bring medical skills, like the actual act of doing surgery or seeing patients, but there's indirect aspects, right? One is that, we get to bring in supplies directly. So we get to bring in, a suitcase. I took 5 suitcases with me of medical supplies, instruments, chocolates, toys, and coffee. So 2 of my suitcases were just simply chocolates, toys, and coffee. They weighed about 32 kilograms. I had to pay extra, 35 kilograms, and they almost did not let me take it on the plane because they're so heavy. And I gave the chocolates and the coffee up because many people have not had coffee and chocolates for 6 months, and that made a difference. So it's that. It's also, there's a certain amount of cash you're allowed to take in that the Egyptian authorities will allow. So you can give that cash away to the hospital authorities, and then they can pay the staff and things like that. And then there's a psychological benefit, right? Because they really appreciate us coming. They feel like they're not alone in this world, that there's direct contact. They benefit from the exchange. Psychologically, it's something to look forward to with us going. And so I think there's multiple things, and I really encourage healthcare workers, even if you think, well, you know what, I don't know, my skills will not be needed. But you know what, there's other things that are very important. You being there, you being present amongst them, keeps the message out and lets the world know that Gaza, that the suffering is still going on. So I really do encourage people. And there are organizations, I mean, I'm happy to, if someone wants to message me, link you up with organizations that are going, that are organizing missions even now as we speak.
Sure, excellent. Everyone, please follow Dr. Yasser's Instagram channel. It's YAK Orbit, Yak Orbit, inshallah. And please message him directly if you work in the medical field and would like to volunteer on the ground in Gaza, so that he can provide you with details about, inshallah, how you can join there and how you can volunteer and make a difference directly on the ground. And like Dr. Yasser said, it's not just about the medical aid. The psychological impact of being connected with someone from the outside world is immense. I remember when I was in Nasser, and we used to get doctors from Doctor Beyond Borders, both the international and the French. And by the way, someone asked, do you need to speak Arabic? No, you do not need to speak Arabic. There will be translators there when needed, and lots of the people in Gaza speak English already, especially those working in the medical field. So, Doctor, on February the 12th, I was supposed to receive a Canadian doctor delegation. There was with Dr. Fawzia Alwi, if you heard of her, in Nasser Hospital. However, the IDF entered Nasser Hospital on February the 10th, and that I was unfortunate not to be able to meet her. And I think they redirected them from Nasser to the European hospital. So like you said, if there is something risky, the WHO will manage that, and inshallah will take you to a place that is that has less of a heavy fire, I think. Would you have any questions for me, Doctor?
Just to the previous point, I mean, when I was there the first time, Nasser was still working and operational, and I wanted to get to Nasser, but they said don't go because the IDF can close the roads anytime, and then you can get stuck at Nasser and not be able to get out, and that's why I didn't go. So there is coordination that goes on to keep you safe. One thing. So I think one thing that I really experienced in 2 months ago and now much worse was the fact that a modern, well-functioning hospital has been converted into a refugee camp. I was at the European, and I knew European used to be a premier hospital in the Gaza Strip, and now it was there's 20,000 people 2 months ago inside and outside. There wasn't an inch to move in the hospital. People have made shelters inside and outside. They're cooking. one bathroom for 200 people, and now it's 30,000 people, 35,000 people now. 2 months later, and the hospital is a mess, unfortunately, and they have no choice. But I want to find out. I mean, you actually were one of these people living around Nasser Hospital. How was that for you? And how was there a community? I mean, basically, it's like a mini city that's been built in and outside the hospital. And how was life in that little sort of city that was built?
So I think different from the European hospital, doctor, Nasser Hospital is similar to Al-Shifa Hospital. It's a big complex of several buildings, and there's a lot of empty space in between, whether it be the parking lot, whether it be the pavements, etc. So, and earlier in the war, Al-Shifa Hospital was the main area for journalists, especially those with international broadcasting and SNGs. When Al-Shifa Hospital was attacked, all the journalists came to Nasser Hospital. So Nasser Hospital became the main ground for journalism, in addition to being a home for 20,000 in the beginning refugees, plus all the operations that need to be done within the hospital. So it was like a small town, right? You had barbers, you had shops, you had, I'm sure you must have seen something similar in the European as well. You had people selling everything, you had washrooms, you had makeup tents where people were being operated in. You had locations, you had places where people would pray, where people would socialize. You had areas that would serve the food, would have clean water. Like I said, it's like a small town, a mini town. And one of the first things that it took time for me to get used to is that, coming from Canada, after living there for 6 years and then 4 years before, we come to a sort of, respecting our private space and then our individualistic personas. But there you are forced to always socialize and open up and talk, and this is something that I wasn't very used to in the beginning. But slowly, you basically take on the habits of the people around you. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to sharing everything, like literally everything, right? I mean, it'd be normal for someone to sleep in your bed, and you would come back and you'd see a colleague sleeping in your bed, right? Or it would be normal that you would have your food somewhere and then someone would take some of it. It's not that it's just that they feel that we all share everything, that's the mentality there. It's a sharing mentality. And so yeah, I mean, it was this group of journalists, right? So Brother Wa'il and so many others, alhamdulillah, from different TV stations, and we were like a family. In addition to that, we had 4 different schools around us. So you had this very big compact space of refugees, schools, where we ran educational systems, we provided charity, we cooked, etc. And you had in the middle Nasser Hospital. And we were always told, especially by those directors in the UN, that, you guys are safe. You have 4 schools, you have a hospital, and it's the biggest running hospital in Gaza Strip. Nothing's going to happen there, right? Just stay focused on continuing doing the work that you're doing. And yes, I'm still saddened by what happened to Nasser Hospital. It was my home, and right now it's a ghost build. They are ghost buildings, and everything has been bulldozed there. Everything has been bulldozed except for a few standing cement structures. So, doctor, what's next? What is next for you, inshallah?
Well, I'm so sorry. I'll just add. It takes as a healthcare professional, it takes years to perfect and build a fully functioning hospital. It's not an easy thing. And Nasser Hospital was a major, fully functioning hospital that dealt with hundreds and thousands of people, and it takes minutes to destroy it. And I agree. It's hugely tragic. And I mean, obviously you're closer to it. I felt the loss tremendously, and I mean, when I went there now, so and I mean, the worry is there because the European hospital is the only fully functioning hospital now left. And the worry is that if the IDF invades Rafah, it will be catastrophic. And you have to really fully go there to see how catastrophic it will be. The majority, over 50% of people in the hospital, for example, are children running around. You see kids children in every corner running around, playing, not going to school when they all went to school. The literacy rate in the Gaza Strip was 95% or over, right? Education is a key priority for this society, for this civilization. It's among the most educated civilization in the world. And now these kids are running around for 6 months, and it's changed. I mean, a lot of the adults were telling me that, listen, our kids are misbehaving, and we're not used to this because our kids are good kids. They're taught values and morals, and now they've just been running around in the hospital, refugee camps, not going to school, missing all their essential needs. And so all these people are there, the sick, the elderly, the injured. And if the IDF invades, it will be catastrophic beyond imagination. And I mean, we need to emphasize that to whoever we can in governments, in the public, in media, that it will be catastrophic. When I went there, Mansoor, I really, so this time it was a much more emotional experience for me. I felt more down, more depressed, and more demoralized because things were just worse. And I think a lot of the healthcare workers are burnt out, have basically almost given up, but not given up. They're just kind of doing what they're doing, what they have to do. But the hospital's a mess now. Infection control is out of control. When before it was, and Palestinians are used to good quality control. Their hospitals ran very well before the war. Very modernized systems. I know that, right? The quality control is top notch. But how can you quality control, in this period of constant bombing, constant victims, your entire infrastructure, your homes, your entire life, every cafe, restaurant, playground, how your home, your university, school, hospital, your mosque, your church, your museums, your archives, your culture, your civilization is just destroyed, destroyed. How do you go on from that? So they're spent. And so, but one thing they've not lost is their faith. That has not wavered at all. So that's one thing I noticed. I mean, they're spent, they're demoralized, but they've not lost their faith in God, their faith in Allah, their faith in justice, in divine justice, in Allah's justice. They've not lost that at all. That has not wavered at all, I found. They still pray, they're hopeful. But I mean, what do you think? I mean, kind of message do you want to give the rest of us? What can we do beyond what we're doing now?
Yeah, let's think out loud here together. So one of the projects that we've supported with hundreds of thousands of dollars is the establishment of field hospitals in Gaza. I want to take your opinion on that. Have you seen them run in Gaza directly, and what are your thoughts on them? And do you think that's one viable solution? We can talk about other things, but I wanted to ask you about field hospitals that we've helped establish in Gaza, how you're seeing them running, and is it something that can help at this point, or what are your bigger thoughts about that? And also, your advice for those who want to establish field hospitals in Gaza.
I mean, obviously, a field hospital is a band-aid solution. Of course, I mean, we need to stop. We need an immediate ceasefire and stop this killing right now. Because even if we stop it right now, thousands will still die and of infection and other things, starvation as well. But I mean, we need field hospitals. I think 2 months ago when I went. A lot of doctors, Palestinian doctors, complained that the response from the international community at that point in time in building field hospitals was extremely poor. And they couldn't figure out why. In most war zones, the WHO and The Red Cross, they already have field hospitals built and things like that, but that did not happen. Now, I believe that there's one field hospital that I particularly walked past by the International Medical Corps, I think, and that is in Rafah, and that's been built. And I mean, so first of all, yes, I think for now we will need field hospitals because 80% of the land has been destroyed because the Israeli forces have not only come in, they've depaved roads, right? So they've depaved roads, so you can't even drive vehicles on these unpaved roads. So every road, many roads have been depaved. So basically, we will need field hospitals for sure because no matter what happens, 1.5 million people, how do you treat them? And they're sick. They're starving, they're malnourished, they're infected, they're amputated, they're blind, they're sick, right? Not to mention the other general medical cares like cancer and tumor and hypertension and heart disease and all that other stuff that happens normally to a society. So we need field hospitals. Number two, the thing I'm grappling with when I was there was the unknown, the uncertainty, right? It's hard to build and construct something when you don't know what's going to happen, because if the Israeli forces invade, if the Rafah invasion happens and the catastrophic nature of it, what's going to happen? How does that affect logistics? Where do you set up your field hospital? Can you even set up a field hospital in an active invasion and war zone? So I don't know how to grapple those questions. I mean, one thing is to do what we're doing now, is just keep on doing and hope for the best. Hope that there's a ceasefire and truce that's made and everything stops. That's my attitude. It's just you keep on doing it. You cannot of uncertainty, because people will die if you're a prisoner of uncertainty and you don't do any action. So I do believe.
Doctor, when you were there, were international medical teams allowed to go to the north or only the south?
Very limited. I think the MSF has some people going, but no. I mean, all the North American and even the UK ones that went, as far as I know, were not allowed to go to the north, and that's where we need it. I think MSF has some presence. UNRWA, I think, has some presence, and there's some people that do, but not. No, I mean, it's still an area that's been made inaccessible by the Israeli forces to get up north, where a lot of the starvation and malnourishment is going on. They have nothing. They have no water, no power, no internet, no food. It is, and it's not. The world concentrates on the 1.5 million in Rafah, but there's what I think there's about at least 400,000 people. That's a lot of people. That's the size of, I don't know, Mississauga here in Ontario. Like it's a big size city, and those people are just left to fend for themselves with measly food drops from the air that don't have any impact. So we need to get people up there. We need to open up that land route to get doctors up to the north and supplies up to the north. I mean, that has to happen.
Were you able to go to the middle region, مستشفى شهداء الأقصى, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, or any of your colleagues?
Yes, actually, so I went in with a team, and there's a primary care team. So there's a family doctor, some nurses, and an internal nephrologist that did go to Al-Aqsa. And I believe they also met Brother Khalid, who, the soul of my soul, who was there, and I think they met him there as well. He was doing some work at the hospital. And so they went up, and what they saw there was, I mean, they were shocked by, they saw mass starvation. Like really, really, people who were just wasting away, children mostly, of course, because they got affected the first. They saw mass starvation. I mean, I saw trauma, like I saw explosive trauma and surgical trauma, just because at the European, but they saw more of the famine and the starvation and the malnourishment, and people dying away from unmanaged hypertension, unmanaged heart disease, unmanaged diabetes, and even cancer. So yeah, so they saw a lot, and it's actively going on. There's bombings every day. There's about 100 people that are killed every day. and that goes on and on and on. So it's I mean the scale of the brutality here is unprecedented, unprecedented, and I mean, you know, so therefore, when I came back, I must admit, Mansoor, that, you know, I'm a very optimistic person. Last time I was very optimistic, 2 months ago when I went. When I came back this time, and I know it's only been 2 days. I mean, you know, it's taking a lot for me to get my faith together and see hope and optimism, because you have to see hope and optimism, right? But it's hard because they're beautiful people and they're innocent victims and they're just suffering from this onslaught, and nobody's stopping this current Israeli government. Nobody's stopping these Israeli forces from this mass killing, and it's frustrating. Yeah, frustrating.
Can you share with us what you had for suhoor and iftar there in Gaza?
Um, so I basically I mean for suhoor I had water and dates, right? And that's the other thing, is that they are so generous. I mean, the food is limited, but the Palestinian doctors that I was with, every night they would wait for me and they would not have dinner without me, right? They would wait even till 10 o'clock, and I said, guys, just go and eat. I'll come by. Don't worry about me. I'm in the OR. No, they'd wait for me. 4 or 5 of them waiting for me. And it'd be like beans and shashuka, you know, tomato without the eggs, because there's no eggs, and canned tuna and things like that, and they'd wait for me. But for sahur, I mean, I had what they had was, you know, beans, a little bit of beans, a lot of bread, some tuna with olive oil and pepper and lemon, you know the kind, and it was good enough. I mean, it was fine. So it was fine. I mean, it was fine. Just fasting amongst them was a blessing, and and you know, and they showed me pictures of how festive the month of Ramadan was only a year ago. You know, there's lanterns and lights everywhere, and you know, they have, you know, people have these elaborate displays of different Ramadan foods, and you know, and now a lot of them are cooking in their tents in the hospital and outside, so you can see these burners going in the hospital trying to fry or cook whatever they can, and yeah, and you know, meanwhile sick patients are going by being operated on, while outside on the wards you have this cooking and this fasting going on. But they're fasting, I mean, they're steadfast. Their faith is very, very strong. Nothing is going to shake their faith. And I mean, most Palestinians feel there, I don't know how you felt, is that there are a lot of people trying to get out only to save their lives, but they want to come back. I mean, at this point in time now, after 6 months of this suffering, I mean, they want to save their children. I mean, there's almost nothing to go back to. Everything's been destroyed and flattened, right? But they want to come back. They all say, you know, we want to go for 2 months and come back. 2 months, it's never forever, right? They want to come back. And so you get people coming in with dry eyes, like a mild thing, wanting a referral, right? And the doctors are giving their referral, you know, to go outside for medical care, and they know it's not going to happen. Like, they're not going to be able to leave, right? But I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, they all say. I mean, I had this one woman who said, "Listen, her husband's not there. She's now a single mom with this 2-year-old. She goes, you know, I wish you could take my son, keep him safe with you, and give him back to me when the war is over." And I said, you know, I wish I could do that too. I would do it. I keep him safe for you and give him back to you when the war is over, inshallah, right? But people just want that. They're at that level now. Like 2 months ago, it wasn't as bad, right? 2 months later now, they want to get out, but then come back, right? So I don't know. You know, it's like the danger is that what happened to the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, Jordan, and everywhere else, they weren't allowed to come back. They left thinking they'd come. And you know, many, and Mansoor, you'll appreciate this, right? And these are stories that you know because you lived all of this, right? But I mean, I talked to many people, and they thought that they'd be back in a week or 2 weeks at most. So they say, you know, when we were evacuating to save our lives because the bombing was getting close and people were dying, we just thought, okay, well, what are we going to take? What can we take? And one woman said, I stood there for 5 minutes looking at my house and said, okay, what can I take? I'll be back in a week. So it took a bit, and then the house is gone now. It's burnt. They all lost their homes. So yeah, so it's how do you get past the destruction of your culture, of your life, like your culture, your life, your civilization gone? It's hard, but I mean, I think right now, I mean, healthcare is very important, and I'm focusing on that. But I mean, yeah.
Doctor, I Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Um, Something I want to share as a message of optimism that subhanallah, the Prophet ﷺ said that one of the things that subhanallah will continue until the day of judgment within the Muslim Ummah is that good people will see good visions in their dreams. So they can predict, inshallah, good things that will happen in the future. And you have no idea how many people in Gaza and outside Gaza told me that, Mansour, we dreamt that it's going to get tough and tough and tough and it's going to be so tough that people start, like you said now, like questioning everything. Like what happened in Ghazwat al-Ahzab battle. زلزلوا حتى يقولوا متى نصر الله متى نصر الله. When will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring his victory? Yes, their faith is unwavered. Yes, mashallah, يعني, they haven't been, despite all the physical destruction, from a moral point of view, from a mental point of view, alhamdulillah, they are strong with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will. But the visions, the dreams that the people have is that things will get tougher and tougher until at a point where the Palestinian population will start wanting to give in to the IDF's demands. Then, in a miraculous way, inshallah, things will change 180 degrees. So, inshallah, the visions of these people do come true. And Ramadan has always been historically a month of blessed goodness for the Muslim Ummah and the world at large. A month of victories, a month of happiness, and a month where, inshallah, our good deeds are multiplied and our bad deeds erased. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to utilize us to serve His religion. We ask Him to continue to renew our intention to work for His sake and His sake only. Each one of us in his own strength, in his own realms, whether we are physically in Gaza or outside. And like you said, the intention, inshallah, is to temporarily be outside of Gaza, and we will be back, inshallah. Dr. Yasser, it was an honor to be here with you, honestly. And inshallah, we can have a second part where we go through even in more details, things that you have witnessed there. Yani, subhanallah, we didn't meet in person, but being in Gaza yourself, and I feel we're speaking the same language, alhamdulillah. And mashallah, yani, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. And just one last question before we close, because I have to leave now to the studios at Al Jazeera. Are you going there again, inshallah?
Once you go there, you're gonna go again. Yes, inshallah, I do want to go again. My heart's still there. I left it last time and never came back. So yes, I do plan on going there again. I'm learning every time I go of what the needs are, and I'm hoping that when I go back again, inshallah, there'll be peace there and there'll be some kind of stability. But yes, I definitely want to go again. We'll go again. Yeah, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. So for all medical workers around the world who are interested to go and Gaza and volunteer, please direct message Dr. Yasser on his Instagram channel, Yak Orbit, YAKORBIT, and on Instagram, and inshallah he'll give you details on how you can volunteer and make a difference on the ground in Gaza, not only in a medical perspective, but from other ways as well, inshallah. I loved your example of bringing in coffee and chocolate. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. جزاك الله خير يا دكتور. بارك الله فيك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Thank you all for listening and being patient with us. And please follow Dr. Yasser on his Instagram channel. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.